It's the Liberty Bell.
This character has been called a fascinating grotesque, feral, a perverse deity. The television series built around it is considered one of the top cult shows ever made.
You mean it's a cult?
What? I think I would know if I was in a cult, Orlando. It's not like they're all wearing the same color clothes with wide-eyed stares.
Hi, Jamie Benson, here to revel in the glorious atrocities of the show Strangers with Candy. So strap on your labial bells, and let's ring in the show's landmark achievements in bad taste. Here are 10 things you may not know about Strangers with Candy. Blink.
Just relax.
Strangers with Candy was a television show and eventual movie that poked lots of fun at the after-school specials of the late 20th century. These specials often starred pre-fame actors and always had a very special moral message, teaching youngsters the dangers of everything from overwrought acting.
No! Hey, if you tell somebody, I will kill you!
Undercooked dialogue.
Adults do liquor, even toke. Everybody does it.
Awkward chemistry.
Hey, tonight's your party, isn't it? What time?
Well, if you still can come.
Long pauses. And of course, Helen Hunt doing PCP. Strangers with Candy, airing on Comedy Central in 1999 and 2000, starred slapstick savant Amy Sedaris as Jerri Blank, a 40-something drug-addled ex-prostitute who crawls out from under all the rocks of society's gutter to finish high school.
I don't graduate by the time I'm 50. I'll be the laughingstock of Flat Point High.
Sedaris, along with her cohorts, Paul Danilo and Stephen Colbert, inverted the villain of these after-school specials with Jerri, a sort of pro-heroine, anti-heroine. For me, as a recovering fine artist and aspiring comedy has-been,
I don't know how to quit him.
I don't know how to quit balls. This is an
education
on one of Amy Sedaris' most iconic characters, and
critique
on whether the show holds up within the
new context
of present-day life.
I'm gonna make him feel so good.
Number 1. Jerri's character was oddly progressive. Our main character is stuck in a woefully wrong past regarding almost any social issue.
And I'm not an Indian. It's just a coincidence that I have a love of gambling and booze and a knack for catching syphilis.
But Jerri, whose name was intentionally gender neutral, might be one of the first gender queer and sexually fluid characters on television.
You'd love that, wouldn't you?
Now, Sedaris goes a lot further than someone like Julia Sweeney playing Pat on Saturday Night Live.
This is something we'll both enjoy.
While every joke about Pat revolves around the confusion people have regarding their gender and sexuality,
I was really naive. I think it was, but now I'm like, ugh.
Jerri's gender and sexuality, it isn't scrutinized at all. Jerri is just Jerri. Fun fact, Jerri's infamous line,
I like the pole and the hole,
came from Amy Sedaris' little brother, Paul. Blank is out about being sexually fluid, figuratively. Sometimes literally.
I'm as moist as a snack cake down there.
And Sedaris herself fought for Jerri to have both male and female love interests.
Good times.
Number 2. Jerri Blank was inspired by FLORRIE Fisher and GIULIETTA MASINA. Paul Danilo had his aha moment when finding a VHS tape of Florence Fisher at Kim's Video in New York's East Village. Kim's was the place to rent videos that defied mainstream tastes like B-horror, Czech New Wave, and a little public service announcement called The Trip Back. It featured Florence, or FLORRIE, a motivational speaker that scared students straight with harrowing personal tales about heroin and prostitution.
23 years of living with nothing but gutter hypes and junkies.
Amy Sedaris' voice is more nasal, but besides that, you can spot FLORRIE's je ne sais quoi in everything from Blank's hair, clothes, and bombastic yet earnest confessions.
I can't smoke one stick of pot. I can't take one needle of cocaine.
I can't smoke one stick of pot or take one needle of coke.
Fun fact, to further nail Blank's fashion proclivities, Amy Sedaris only told costume shaman Vicky Farrell that Jerri's the kind of character that would own a snake. That's it, and a fashion icon was born. Another fun fact, Jerri's backpack currently resides on the set of At Home with Amy Sedaris. Okay, a lot of people know about FLORRIE, but Danilo also was inspired by Giulietta MASINA in Nights of Cabiria, classic Fellini film. In it, the defiantly optimistic prostitute Cabiria suffers an onslaught of humiliating blows in which she is bested but never broken. Paul Danilo calls her a tragic clown, just like Jerri. Number 3. The creators had competing pitches for Comedy Central. While Sedaris prepped to pitch her show, spoofing after-school specials, Comedy Central was already about to cut Colbert and Danilo a check for a show they pitched called Mysteries of the Insane Unknown. The show would have posed questions like, are pyramids just bomb shelters built by aliens? Danilo, who I believe was dating Sedaris at the time, invited Colbert over to Amy's house to help her construct her pitch. Danilo told Amy she should do a character like FLORRIE.
Until we got on horse.
Sedaris thought the character should go back to high school, and Colbert wanted the character to learn the wrong thing every episode.
The violin is an evil instrument that tears people apart.
Solved for X, and X is comedy gold. Colbert, I read, was happy to help, even though he thought Amy's idea was so good it might cancel out their own. And he was right. Strangers with Candy was lit, green, and Mysteries of the Insane Unknown kind of became its own name. Psst, hi, I'm looking for friends like these. Sound off in the comments. Thank you.
You sure are raising quite a lather there, Nurse Chestnut. That is, lather, right?
Number 4, the unaired pilot was pretty different. In the unaired pilot, the original stepmother was not Deborah Rush, but Sarah Thayer, and she had a sort of 1950s housewife vibe.
It's just that you could be so much nicer looking if you just clean yourself up a little bit.
It all worked out for the best, though, because Miss Rush gave us the deliciously pinched, prissy, and hateful stepmother.
Hello, stepmother.
Jerri, there goes my quiet and pleasant afternoon.
Oh, come on, Jerri!
And Thayer gave us the literally ball-busting Coach Cherry Wolf.
We will postpone these tryouts until after we have all recovered from Jerri's shame.
And there was a whole hospital subplot, with Jerri as an after-school volunteer for Fossilton Rehabilitation Center. Paul Danilo and Stephen Colbert take on dual roles. Danilo doesn't play emotionally squishy Jeffrey Jellyneck here, instead playing Sears, an equally squishy librarian, and Troy, a pill-popping orderly at the hospital. Colbert was still an uptight Mr. Noblet at school, in addition to an uptight orderly named Laughton.
Are you all right, Miss Downs?
You seem detached.
I'm fine.
Number 5, Poppy's death was inspired by a true story. In the first episode that did air, alpha mean girl Poppy suffers fatal blunt force trauma while tripping her mammaries off on a street drug named Glint, artisanally crafted by Jerri Blank herself.
It's making my lips numb.
Oh, yeah. It's gonna numb it. Actually, it's gonna numb it wherever you apply it, which could be a godsend. I used to apply it liberally when I did this donkey show in Tijuana.
You're weird, Jerri.
I am?
While flying high, Poppy claims to be a bumblebee and tries smashing herself through a keyhole. In the DVD commentary, Stephen Colbert shares a story from his 8th grade teacher, who warned him and his classmates to never take acid because some poor boy thought himself a bumblebee and buzzed some unsuspecting keyhole to his death.
I've gotten them every place I haven't been.
Number 6, placeholders and mistakes were kept in the scripts. Jerri's last name is Blank because they drew a blank when they were coming up with it. Principal Black Man's name exists because Greg Holloman is a black man.
Go on. Tell me what else a black man isn't supposed to be.
In the DVD commentary, Paul Danilo claims that 50% of the jokes in the show were just mistakes that were kept. One of the things I cherish about Strangers with Candy is that they leaned into bad writing and bad acting. For instance, I love when Jerri says the emotion she's supposed to be emoting, just says it out loud in words.
Quandary. Realization. Shame.
We couldn't believe the things they didn't stop us from doing.
Number 7, only one thing was censored. Sort of. Strangers with Candy does a lot of sacred cow tipping. Unfathomable to believe that in our internet rage boner culture, Sedaris, Danilo, and Colbert were largely left to their own devices when it came to standards and practices.
You should always take responsibility for your actions, unless you don't have to.
The network had very little pushback on most things, and even when they did, it was still pretty comical. For instance, the line,
Don't make your pinky all
did raise some orange flags.
You must get another take besides that. You must, absolutely. And then we watch 5 different takes of Pinky Owl Stanky. Pinky Owl Spanky. Pinky Owl Stanky.
Eventually, the network allowed it.
After you say the word banana, after a while, it doesn't mean anything.
The question of which kind of Jew diary was more offensive than the other also came into conversation.
Say stuff to us like, you can say dirty Jew diary, but you can't say filthy Jew diary. And that's what, like, you know, what?
That doesn't even make, as a Jew?
Yeah.
That doesn't even make sense.
Paul Danilo claims that he only really remembers one thing being a real problem.
That albino ran off with the midget.
No, that albino stole my dwarf. So we had to change the line to, that madman took my hobo.
That was someone's job, and that person's name is Renee Presser. Presser was a big fan of Strangers with Candy and gave them a lot of loving leeway. And Renee, we thank you. Fun fact, Presser was also in charge of standards and practices while The Chappelle Show was on.
And it's my favorite family to deliver milk to. The
Number 8, Dad was hard to write for, so he was killed. Vaudeville star Roberto Gary, who played Jerry's father, Guy Blank, in the TV series, was forever shot motionless, riffing on the inactive and distant father trope of after-school specials. The bit was hard to write for and may not have always landed, so they gifted Jerry with a Death in the Family plot line, also really popular for after-school specials.
You know, thousands of people are devoured by high school mascots every day.
And not so fun fact, Gary, who was at an advanced age, didn't feel comfortable shooting the funeral scene, and so that is a different actor in the coffin.
Don't get down.
They iron out some of the character's kinks with Guy Blank in the movie, who's played by Dan Hedaya. He appears to simply be in a coma.
Because it's very hard to fit heads this size on television. Yeah.
Number 9, Bono was almost in it. For a scrappy production, Strangers had some pretty famous people involved, like Allison Janney, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Will Ferrell, Janine Garofalo, Andy Richter, and more. An unknown Chris Pratt went into debt, actually, to be in the movie. There's also this guy.
That's a little old-fashioned, Mr. Jelinek.
Who I think is Jack Ferber, purveyor of psycho-funny, tragic dances and darling of NYC arts and culture. I see you, contemporary dance community. Perhaps most famously, the show scored Winona Ryder and Paul Rudd.
Hey.
In the last episode, Rudd presents his douche-tastic popular boy, which he'd soon perfect in Wet Hot American Summer. Because of the connections Winona had, Bono almost played the Paul Rudd part. I, for one, am glad he didn't, but the sheer audacity of his presence would have been a pretty eye-popping stunt.
Alice, where'd you get that sticky bun?
At the Sticky Bunnery.
Number 10. The show's demise was written into the final script. In Stranger's 30th and final episode, airing in October of 2000, Flat Point High slowly becomes a strip mall. This is not a coincidence. Apparently, Comedy Central wouldn't tell them they were canceled, even while Strip Mall, starring Julie Brown, was being advertised in their time slot.
So I want you on there, living your dreams, and then getting the hell out, understand?
Conclusion/reflections. Does the show hold up?
I am alarmed by the content of this note.
My vagina's bad.
Jerry, the other content.
Some of the word choices, even for a deliberately outrageous show like this, don't hold up perfectly well.
Clearly, she's
Jerry's overt bigotry gives me pause.
Isn't that word just as offensive as what was sprayed on the wall?
A bigot is a racist, Jerry.
Oh, right.
It's a character choice, which of course can be valid from a writing perspective. And normally we're laughing at Jerry instead of with Jerry, so it seems they're often lampooning the absurdity of racism.
I guess I do like black people. It just took a white one to prove it to me.
While aspects of the show don't necessarily hold up perfectly, in general, I think much of the audacity and the humor still works. Listen, I'm not claiming to know everything. Comedy is subjective. Overall, how do you think the show holds up? Let me know in the comments. However you feel about it, here are some rapid-fire things we can all be grateful for about Strangers with Candy. It's quotable.
Befriending new people can lead to having sex with your children, accidentally. I don't have to make the debate team. All I have to do is starve myself to the brink of death to get your attention. If you're gonna reach for a star, reach for the lowest one you can.
It's sexually taboo in an abhorrently unsexy way. It proves comedy has no vanity. And its dynamic trio still are killing it today, working together even. In conclusion, the show was a paradox, both ahead of its time and far too late to happen today. Strangers with Candy has reached cult status, which means that something powerful endures. Let me know if you want to celebrate more comedy. Do you like lists, or do you want to wax on and wax off philosophically? Got a request of who to cover? Let a guy know. Because this gay's agenda is a funny one. Thank you.
Go home.
I don't know what this song is. I'm trying to drown out all the sirens in my life. People think they got places to be or something. Alright. It's not very good. Waiting for some street cleaning responsible city management. So that's a strange word. Cult. Hi. Screaming children. Can you hear the screaming children? Hi.